Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today is my May Reads wrap up for 2022. I was fortunate to be able to have the time, despite being on a road trip, to read 5 books this month. And unfortunately, it wasn't the best reading month. I had no 5 out of 5s. I had one 4 out of 5, three out of 5s, and even a 1 out of 5. Before I go into the summary of my May reads, I would always appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, if you give this video a thumbs up, and if you leave a comment down below if you've read any of these books or you have any suggestions for me for my future things to read. So the first book is Turtle Always Down by John Green. I gave this book a 3 out of 5. We meet Isa, who is a high school student. She has a really bad OCD and anxiety. In the town she's living in, the billionaire goes missing the night before there's a police raid at his home. And it turns out that the billionaire's son, Davis, is someone that Isa knew from her childhood. Then they reconnect to try to solve the mystery of his dad missing. And also through this, as you expect from a young adult's novel, is that a romance sparks. So this book for me was only a 3 out of 5 because I couldn't relate to the characters, and I feel maybe I'm just out of that age range. Having said that though, I believe if I read this book in high school or even my early 20s, this book would have destroyed me because the love they felt for each other and the way they professed their feelings and everything like that, I really related to young me. The next book I read is a memoir by Faith Jones. It is called Cult Nun, Breaking Away from the Children of God, a Wild Radical Religious Cult. So this book was a 4 out of 5 for me because it's just a very unique story, and it's amazing that Faith, whose grandfather actually found the cult, she was born and raised in the cult. It's amazing that she left and has adjusted very well to society right now. And it's also amazing that she's able to share her story because that takes a lot of bravery. So basically, the Children of God initially was like a segue from Christian faith because the grandfather really wanted like a communistic Christian church where the people who are really well off would help people not so well off, which sounds great, right? But the church rejected him, so he started his own church. And over time, this cult became a lot of sexual abuse and like a lot of equality, or the guise of equality, but wasn't really equal. So Faith just shares her story, and I think it's a story worth reading, to be honest. It's also really cool in a way because of this cult. She was able to do missionaries all around the world. So that was like one perk, I guess, and it led to what she does now. The reason why I docked this book a 4 out of 5 and docked 1 star was because the title, Cult Nun, I felt like wasn't really accurate to her story. There is sex, there is cult, but the nun part is inaccurate. I don't think she even uses the word at all throughout the book. So I feel like because of that, it was probably like a cash grab. And because of that, I docked 1 star out of my review. The third book I read is The Divines by Ellie Eaton, which is her debut novel. I gave this book, unfortunately, a 2 out of 5. So this book starts with a possible death at a boarding school, and then it's also dual timelines. So if you enjoy dual timelines, this may be for you. So the first timeline is we go the days leading up to the death of the student, and the second timeline is one of the students in the future and she's now married and has a young child and she relives her past. So we kind of see 2 perspectives of the reality of the time at the boarding school. This book wasn't really for me because to be honest, in high school I had a mix of guy and girlfriend, so I never had like the boarding school experience. I never really dealt with a lot of like catty girls in my life, so I couldn't really relate to the motivation of the characters. I also felt the protagonist in her adult life was very like, woe is me, and I don't know, it just wasn't about that. However, having said that, if you love CW drama shows, I believe this book is for you. I can see who this book is intended for. It wasn't for me, which is fine, but I feel if you are in that audience of drama, young teen, cattiness, this book may be a 4 out of 5 for you. The fourth book I read, which I actually have the copy of, all the other books were library borrows, so I've returned them. This book is a classic, Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I never read it in high school, so I it was my first time reading it. So I gave this book a 3 out of 5. If you're not familiar with the story, a group of young boys survive a airplane crash and are left stranded on this island, and they kind of make their own society where they try to either get food or try to make a signal to attract someone to save them. So the story is very simple, and of course it's kind of like abstract, like how could these boys survive? But what this book is really commentating on is society, how men, when it comes down to the root of who we are maybe inherently evil or maybe bad. And it is a great story. I just gave it a 3 out of 5 because I had such high hopes when I read Animal Farm last year. And that novel for me, it was just so great. Like every page was great. I felt like no word was used too much. Like none of it dragged, and I really loved Animal Farm, so I had really high hopes reading Lord of the Flies, but you know what, it just wasn't a hit for me, so I gave it a 3 out of 5. Also writing, because it is like of like the 50s, it was harder for me to read, which is weird because Animal Farm didn't feel that way, but this book was definitely like not the easiest for me to read despite it being a quick read. My last book for May is The Department of Rare Books and Special Collections by Eva Jerzik, which is also a debut novel for the second author of this month. Unfortunately, I gave this book a 1 out of 5. This book was really tough for me to finish, and at several points during the book, I almost decided not to finish it. But because it's her debut novel, I wanted to give Eva the respect to finish her work because she took the time to read it. And later on, I learned that she actually worked in the rare department at the University of Toronto, so I thought it was cool that there were parallels in the protagonist as well. So basically the story starts with our protagonist. She is in her sabbatical, and she gets pulled for sabbatical because the director of the Department of Rare Books and Special Collections, goes into a coma, and she has to figure out that a really expensive book has gone missing, and where did it go? Was it misplaced, misshelved, or was it stolen? So this book is a classic mystery. It just wasn't for me. The writing wasn't that great. It dragged quite a few times, and also maybe because the protagonist and all the cast of characters were skewing older, I just couldn't relate to it. Having said that, though, there are really good reviews on this. People who like mysteries, which I personally have no experience in, and also people felt like the commentary on being a woman in a male-dominated industry, they could really relate to. So I feel this book is worth reading. Just for me personally, it was a 1. That's all my reads for May. Thank you for watching till the end. As always, I appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, if you give this video a thumbs up, and if you leave a comment down below for any books I should check out in June or July. Bye!